Hi guys, welcome back to the Nik Collection series. Today we're going to talk about creating depth in landscape photography. So creating depth in a two-dimensional picture is a challenge that we can address in different ways. There are things that we can do in composition and in camera, such as using leading lines to create that illusion of a three-dimensional object. And the thing that we need to realize often in processing is that the human eye is way more sophisticated than the most sophisticated camera sensor. So the photograph that you take with your camera is going to look different to the one that you experience with your eyes. And part of processing is about correcting, but the other part of processing is about helping to bridge the gap between this three-dimensional scene that you see with your eyes and the two-dimensional flat scene that is actually a photograph. Now, the first thing you need to think about, and it's not immediately obvious because we adjust our eyes so quickly, is that the area of sharpest focus is usually in the foreground. And what happens is we look at a scene and we raise our eyes from foreground through the middle into the distance, and we don't really notice the focus changing. But if you fix your eyes on an object in the foreground, you will see that almost everything else is out of focus as you gaze straight at the object in the foreground. Second thing you need to realize is that the eye is instinctually drawn to the brightest object in the picture. So in terms of two-dimensional representation, that brightest object needs to be on the way to the thing that you want your audience to look at in the picture. And so we adjust the brightness to encourage the eye to take this journey through the picture. Second thing is that contrast falls off in the distance, as does color. Now if you look with the naked eye at a landscape, you will notice that the contrast fades away in the distant hills, and usually the hills will take on a slightly bluish tinge in the distance. And this is an effect that you can use to your great advantage in processing. By mimicking these natural effects, you will come up with much more natural looking pictures. And the flip side of this is that if you don't compensate for these things, if you have rigidly sharp front to back, bright colors in the distance, massive contrast throughout the picture, although the picture might pop and it might jump off the screen, it might attract attention, there is going to be something wrong with it, and your audience is going to see this scene and it will seem off to them. So the upshot of all of this, and we're going to go through this bit by bit in the video, is often that less is more. And when you're talking about making naturalistic representations of landscapes, which is what I try to do, less is very often more. So you won't see me exploring the extremes of contrast and the limits of individual sliders so much as making very small little tweaks. And what I will do is probably emphasize these in the video, because otherwise there's a real danger that you may not notice them in the picture apart from using the before and after facility. Okay, let's get into the software. Okay, here we are in Lightroom. I've made one single adjustment to this photograph, two adjustments actually. I've cropped it and I've lifted the shadows a little bit, so you can see here very dark in the front, so lifted those shadows a bit. Now all of the rest of the adjustments I'm going to do are going to be in Nik Collection through Photoshop. So first thing I'm going to do is choose Edit in Photoshop. Let's first look at the picture and see what we think needs to be done. We need to add depth to it, and we need to draw the eye from the front through to the back. So we want something a little bit more arresting on the horizon to rival the lighting at the front of the picture. And then we're going to need to bring up a little bit more detail on that front. So the way we're going to do this is in two parts. And the first thing we're going to do is to go for Nik Color Efex. Okay, and don't forget to click the Convert to Smart Object. And let's just add a bit of contrast. And we're focusing on this back area. So first of all, we're going to look and see which one of these is going to give us the best result. Okay, so dynamic contrast, good. Now, what we want to do is really only apply this to this area with the peaks. So let's put this in with the control line first of all and see what the difference is. So, yeah, I need to bring the dropper there. Okay, now what this has done is to focus the effects into the control line. So if we increase the contrast, you can see that happening in the sky and on that horizon, but it's not affecting the rest of the photograph, which is what we want. If we do before, after, okay, we've got a better contrast now between the sky. We've darkened the sky down a little bit. That's before, after. And so the eye has been drawn through to the peaks much more effectively. Now, if we want to double check here, this is a big scale adjustment. So looking at this, we could drag this down a little bit further. Okay, so we're now really focused on these white areas. And we'll turn that off. Okay, that's better. Now we've got a much clearer result. Look again. Moving on to the front of the picture now. What we're seeing is we want to increase the focus here, but we don't want to brighten it up because we're already quite bright here, and we also want to get the figure. So we'll do two things, two control points. Firstly, let's add the first control point. Okay, now because we've sampled on the jacket, this control point is going to be focused almost entirely on that. And for this, because this is a... okay, so we can see here, we're really focused on the figure. And if we play with the luminance, we can, okay, make that much more focused than it is. Okay. So we've got that off, and now we can lift the shadows a little bit here. Bring this up to 100%. Okay. Contrast, reducing contrast on that jacket. And just lifting the shadows a little bit so we've got more detail visible here. Okay. Go back to fit, and you'll see, turning this on and off, you don't really see a massive difference in the picture at all, but this does make a difference in terms of where your eye is drawn to. The last bit, I think we'll do this in two stages. If we put another control point in here, if we put another control point in, and put that here, now because I've sampled on the dark here, it's not really going to affect the rest of that piece, and that's brought up the highlights in the front of the picture. We can apply this, and this will take all of our Pro Contrast tools back into Photoshop. Here we see the Pro Contrast layer, and we've got Smart Filters, we've got Nik Color Efex here. So the next thing I want to do is just to accentuate the detail on these rocks, and to do this we're going to use Nik 6 Sharpener output. Okay, it's picked up the smart object, and again we're not going to do global sharpening here, so we'll turn this off. Output sharpening is turned off. We're going to go for selective sharpening. We're going to go for a control point again, and we're going to put the control point here. Going to increase the mask here. Let's have a look at this mask and see how that's going. Okay, that's good. It's picked up the jacket and so on, which is fine. Don't really worry about that. And it's picked up most of that. We want to get it off the surrounds though, so let's just see. There we go. That's much better. And let's take that. Now we can look at the mask. And we're really only interested here in structure and local contrast. You can view these structure, local contrast and focus as basically grades of sharpening. So this is the most coarse grade, and this is the next most coarse grade. Okay, now if we zoom in, you probably didn't see too much detail there, so if we go in 1 to 1, move that into the here. Now, okay, that's taking structure away, that's adding structure, that's taking local contrast away, that is adding a bit of local contrast. And just to show you, if we add focus, we're getting down to a very, very finely grained level here, and I don't think that's really appropriate in this case. This is a rock in the bigger picture. So let's have a look at that. Okay, and again you'll see this is very subtle. You're not seeing a massive impact, but what we are seeing is that your eye is much more drawn to this area of the picture now, and you go through this in the direction that the rock is pointing to the background, and that looks nice. So we'll apply this, and what you're seeing here is 2 layers. Now you've got your Color Efex layer, you've got your Sharpener layer, and we can adjust should we wish to. Let's adjust the contrast layer, and we can take the opacity down should we wish to here, and you can see the effect on the photograph quite clearly. So this gives effectively, this is the reason I like doing this in Photoshop, is that it gives me another layer of control. I don't have to dive into the detail. I can play these effects off against one another at top level. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So what I would do now is to save this back into Lightroom. Here we are in Lightroom. And then I can just add a little bit of extra pop to this picture. a tiny little bit of contrast. I might go into the colour grading section. I might take my mid-tones a little bit in that direction. Drop my shadows a little bit into a cooler rendering, and my highlights want to be cool because we're looking at the sky in terms of highlights. So I don't want to make the whole landscape blue, I just want to give it a little touch of blue. Okay, and finally I might go into the calibration and just have a little play here. I think that wraps it up for this video. So what we've achieved here, we've added a little bit of contrast along the horizon to make these mountain tops stand out more against the sky. We've brightened a little bit the clothing of the person here. If you look at the shadow on the rocks, you can see this is really strongly backlit, so this would be a complete silhouette had we not done that. We've brought some detail out of the rocks here, making the rocks much more of a stronger pull on the eye than they were, and we've added a little bit of warmth to the globally across the picture and cooled down the sky and the mountains a little bit. Now obviously there's a lot more that can be done, but what we're looking at here is the accentuating depth in the picture, and I think we've done a reasonably good job of that. So we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. If you found this useful, do go down and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, or give the video a like. That would be hugely appreciated, and see you in the next video.